Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 247. I trust you had a marvelous 4th of July. Got out there and celebrated our freedoms, maybe lit a few fireworks, clicked a few pictures, and hopefully had a great time with your family. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm very grateful for you being part of the Moose Podcast audience and all you do to help the podcast as well as other photographers. You're a great bunch. And thank you ever so much for being here. I'm very grateful. Also want to thank my good friends, Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. Home of the Moose discount, MOOSE, whether you're online, in person, or you're on the phone. Make sure you mention that. Save yourself some serious cashola, man. Also want to thank Bedford Camera for being part of the upcoming Moose Aviation Seminar. You can see it live. I know there's at least one seat. I think there's one seat left at the Tulsa store for the in-person part of the seminar, or you can see it online, signing up via the banner you see at the website. Either case, thank you, Bedfords, for supporting the Moose Podcast and sponsoring it, as well as being part of the Aviation Seminar. Well, last week's topic seemed to have rang the bell of a few folks. In fact, a number of people reached out and they said, I know you're talking about me. And actually, I wasn't. The person or persons I was thinking of that brought me that whole about seeing light and finishing for light, the whole thing, well, wasn't one of the folks who reached out to me, but obviously I hit a nerve. So I think the moral of that is, to be honest with you, is that there's a lot of folks, and I can be very easily included in that group, who are missing the biggest benefit of light when it comes to our photography. So the person who I was thinking of, the persons I was thinking of didn't reach out to me, but everybody else seemed to have. So what I'm going to say is, from the heart, please start seeing the light. I want to get right to this week's topic, another one that's been brewing around in the back of my head for a number of years, and to be honest with you, it could be the one that ends my career. I'll try to keep as PC as possible, but the topic's pretty simple. Everybody gets a trophy. Now, what got me thinking about this? Well, I've been thinking about it for a long time. What actually got me to, I guess you could say, bring the topic up is I saw it's a little bit old right now, Billy Crystal movie, Parental Guidance. Don't know if you've seen that movie. But in the nutshell, it's about parents, 20s and 30s, raising their kids. And those parents were brought up in the everybody gets a trophy kind of style of dealing with problems or with successes or competition. And I bring it up because, well, I think we all want, right, to have better photographs. You want better photographs. I want better photographs. You want to take a better photograph and do a better job of it. I want to take a better photograph and do a better job of it. I want to grow my photography. I assume you want to grow your photography. It's all about that. But in the current mode where a lot of people share their photography via social medium, whichever one you want to pick, and we're really given the option of either love or kind of like thumbs up. People take from that, I think, this basic everybody gets a trophy mentality where no one's actually ballsy enough to say, that photograph, I commend you for sharing that photograph. I want to give you 5 stars for getting out with that camera and going click. And I want to give you another 5 stars for investing your passion in that photograph. But the photograph sucks. You know, it just sucks. And we don't, we're I don't know, either we're so busy tapping around people's feelings. We're afraid that if we say something negative, that all of a sudden our images will suffer from it because we'll get negative review. I'm not sure where it is. And it could be as simple as photographers don't know. People don't know. They don't know that this is a really nice image and this is really not so nice an image, right? There is that grading gray area where we don't know, is that image really worth our saying outstanding, applause icon, heart icon, or if we say nothing, if that gets counted as a negative vote. So what's the point? Well, my point is, personally, I want to improve as a photographer. I want to do a better job behind the camera. I want to do a better job those times I need to finish it in post. And I want to do a better job sharing it. And to get better at all those things, I don't want that homogenized, everybody gets a trophy, applause or like or love. I want for someone to say, that works great, except for, or that works great because of. So I could take that information in and become better at all those things I just mentioned and so much more. And I'm thinking about this, and I get that kind of feedback or response when I send my images into those professionals, the photo buyers, the people in the editorial stream who look at images and say this, that, or the other. They're not trying to sell a product. They're trying to sell everything else but a product. How do folks who want to improve find that same feedback if we all don't start elevating our conversation beyond the everybody gets a trophy? I was part of a Zoom crit. It's about the only way I could describe it. And in this process, I heard a lot of nitpicking about things that, to be honest with you, weren't relative to what the conversation was about. I'm not going to say any of them in particular for that, because I don't want to pick on anybody or make anybody feel subconscious about, what was going on. But I have a good friend, and he was having his photographs judged at his camera club. Really gorgeous shot of a meadowlark. And everything about it was it was spot on. It was spot on. And one of the comments from one of the judges was, I would have photoshopped out the poop on the pole. And I'm like, how does that help the photographer? Why couldn't you just said, hey, you did a really great job here? Because there is no perfection in this process. But if we don't get past the pettiness, one way or the other, the pettiness of finding little faults, or the pettiness of not being able to say, there's an issue with this photograph. How can we elevate ourselves and then as a community and then take the photograph on a global scale to make a difference? This everybody gets a trophy attitude does not work for photography. Once you get into business, and yes, I talk about, the business of photography a lot because that's where I work, and that has so cultivated the way I think about this. That competition, which I don't know why all of a sudden why that got out of favor. My poor boys, they had to deal with their dad who was stuck in the mud, and they weren't in the no matter what, everybody gets a trophy kind of ever with dad around. But when you're competing for that page space, that billboard, that 4 seconds TV spot, there isn't 1,000 images there because everybody gets a trophy. No, there's just the one winner of that particular space that gets time in front of us, the viewer. How do you get to that point? It's not by saying about your photography, and especially about others, oh, I love that, when there are some things that are a major issue, be it focus. I'm not sure where that got to be an iffy topic, whether, just because it's not tack sharp doesn't mean there's not an issue, but there is an issue. Things that aren't sharp, okay, right off the bat, don't get loves, don't get likes. Things that the exposure is just wrong. Yeah, they shouldn't get a trophy either. Those that have really bad light or aren't using light to their most, yeah, those should be getting, loves or likes either. And photographs, just because you happen to know the right hashtags to promote this, that, or the other product, yeah, just because you have the right hashtags doesn't instantly make that photograph, yeah, a winner. It is a very fine line that makes that photograph one that we go, oh, and we stop and look at it. And we need to, as a community, start to belly up to the bar and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to say, yes, I commend you for going out. I commend you for your passion. I commend you for sharing, but that photograph needs some help. And so I'm not going to give you that star. I'm not going to give you that a little clappy icon that says, hey, applause, applause. Now, I know I'm saying this on the podcast, and I know I won't make a massive change, but I'm hoping at least one or two of you, when you look at a photograph, you might just stop for a second. And I'm not talking about nitpicking, looking for that little piece of, shit on the pole from the bird and say that's the problem. But when we're talking about the major items that make a photograph up, that light, that color, the sharpness, we sit there and we say, hey, great job for sharing. You could have made the photograph stronger by, and then help not only the photographer, but help yourself. You have to understand that when you start looking at photographs, and I hate to say the word more critically, well, it's two words. So I didn't say the word more critically. Okay. I said two words. If we look at it with a finer eye, with more TLC involved, we not only help the photographer, but more importantly, we start helping ourselves. It kind of goes back to a little bit of my whole thing, in a way I want to talk about composing in the viewfinder versus, doing it in post. Another word is saying cropping. But when you compose in the viewfinder, if you can't compose it in the viewfinder, what makes you think you're going to compose it in the computer? Just because you have the more luxury of time. So when you're looking at people's photographs, you're looking at the elements that they have arranged in the photograph. Don't get really nitpicky on that part. Let's talk about more universal things we have that we can talk about. We have a bit of a measure, light and white balance and color and exposure, those things that are, and sharpness that are kind of a given. We can improve our photography so much more and help the other person by simply just, not everybody gets a trophy, all right? A lot of things coming up this week. It is July. The heat is kind of unbearable, but things are moving on. One of our white-tailed deer has white-tailed deer does drop fawns, has twins that she's keeping stashed. We've seen little glimpses of them. This is it's just been 48 hours. So that part is coming through. We got baby birds coming out. All these are great photographic ops. And with this heat, if you have the opportunity, remember to put out some water for that critters. They need it even more than normal. Get out there and shoot. Share your images. And remember to make every click your story.